Hello, I am Ferris Pilot, and today I am interviewing someone. Say hello, Ben.
Hello.
This is Ben Perry, the developer, sole developer of Copod, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's one other person's doing music, but I'm doing the design and programming.
Design and programming, of course.
Yeah.
So lead developer, anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it.
And we're here to talk about Copod and the design process behind Copod. Ben, first question for you.
All right, shoot.
How did you get started with game development, and what kind of advice would you give to someone who's just starting out?
Oh, big question. Well, I guess I started doing my spare time at university, just basically using my spare time just to build up some skills. Like I started at a very young age as well, and so the earlier you start, the better it is, I think. So just pick a language, like anything easy really, because you got a program. So some people use Game Maker, some people use like Python or something like that. Just pick one and then just practice at that all the time and basically develop your skills through that, and also try and do some drawing. If you're a sole developer, also try and practice your art at the same time. But ideally, if you know someone, then join up with them as well, and just develop your skills like that. Really, just keep practicing. That's all I can say. And yeah.
Right. And how did you start out? You said you started out in university, but I mean, like, what
Yeah.
was your
Well, I
first game?
programmed before that. My first game. I remember like back in junior school. I don't know what the American equivalent is for that. I don't know what that is, but back in junior school,
About how old were you?
I was probably about, I think, yeah, 16. I'd say 15,
All right, it's
16.
like high school.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. And a friend, and I remember we was playing. There's like this game called Ratchet and Clank. There's these like mini games that it comes with, and
Mhm.
we wanted to play it, but it wasn't available because I lost my save or whatever. So we decided to just make it in Flash, because this was back in the days when Flash was quite good. And,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and we decided to make that, and that's pretty much where I think the first game started. Like I did the basic art as best I could do when I was around 16, and he did the best he could do at program, best he could at 16. And yeah, we made this game where basically just a sun in the center and like sheep orbit, and you just got this two-player or get one player against the AI, and you just got to shoot each other with some simple power. Just very basic, but
Mhm.
it was a good. You got to start somewhere, and that was kind of fun. So yeah, so just do little projects when you start out with, really. For the people out there who are just starting, just do little projects at a time and slowly build up. Because I think a big part of it is knowing your limits as well, but also the trick is trying to expand your skill set as well. So you don't want to do a project that's too big, like,
Yeah.
but yeah, but know your limits, but try and improve them slightly as you go forward. Really, that's probably the biggest piece of advice I can give to people.
Moving on, like, what do you think are the most useful things you've learned in the process of creating and publishing Copod, your current game?
It's still an alpha, but I've learned quite a bit because I learned that it's actually really important to get feedback relatively early. So I occasionally go on Reddit and post on r/game dev, the subreddit there,
Hmm.
and they have on every Friday they have this feedback post, and you go on there and you post your game, and it's kind of like a mutual like deal there where you post your game, you test a few others, and they test yours. It's just
Yeah.
mainly between developers rather than getting exposure. But I found like it's really good to have people come back to you and tell you what's wrong with your game, because even if you're like aware of it in the back of your head, you tend to forget a lot of things because there's a lot of aspects in game development that you can't even work at one thing at a time, so you have to push things back, and sometimes you forget about those things. Um, what was an example? Yeah, this wasn't on our game dev, but this was on a Steam Greenlight post, and
Uh-huh.
someone said like the shield effect didn't suit the rest of the aspect of the game, and that's something I totally agree with. Like when I was trying to design it, like I did it and I thought, oh, okay, this will do for now, but I never went back to it. And so when people bring up like your flop faults and that sort of thing, it it keeps you on your toes. Basically, makes you flaws you've forgotten about. It just brings it back, and sometimes it bring up issues that you weren't even aware of. So feedback is probably the most important thing I've learned. Like, it's just how valuable it is, really.
Yeah, and often, like, I would assume that since you're the one developing the game, you're constantly testing it. Some game mechanics might seem reasonable to you, but to
Yeah.
a new player, it might be a little bit confusing.
Yeah, totally. Like even by just like watching some like let's plays and stuff like that, I've realized that certain aspects, this is too like they find like sometimes I find a strategy that is so powerful that I have to balance it, that sort of thing, and that helps a lot too. So yeah, because you're so close to the project all the time, like you like to think that you know what you I know what I'm doing, but you like to think that you have a you like to think that you have perspective on everything, really, I should say.
Yeah.
And because you're so close, you're working on it and you're closer to it than anyone else is. So when someone has a fresh set eyes on the project, then they can bring things up and it helps a lot.
So moving on, like what do you think were the most frustrating and the most rewarding parts of developing Copod? Just give like an example of each.
I think one of the most frustrating things is when it's probably the drawing and realizing the designs of things, because there's no one obvious solution in programming. There's a bit of art to it, but usually, like maths, there's the best solution, the path of
the optimal solution.
Yeah, the optimal solution, the path of least resistance, and you can go for that. But when you're just drawing and art, and I'm still and my skills aren't brilliant or anything, but I'm still learning and developing my sense of like my own style, and in doing so you come across roadblocks, like some enemy designs. Like I designed them initially and I realized even at the time that I'm not happy with them and I have to go back to them later once I've stewed over it a bit. So that's probably the most frustrating thing, not being able to just draw something right the first time and having to iterate over and over again. So yeah, there's that. And the most, what was the other thing, the most rewarding? I think just seeing people actually play the game and that sort of thing. Like over the internet, it feels a bit empty sometimes. Like you just see numbers and that sort of thing. But when you actually see people play your game and enjoy it, and if it's in Let's Play videos or something else, or even it's just comments, it's a lot better. I remember the first Let's Play video was like, I think this was quite a few months ago. Like it was a really early build, and some German kid, I didn't understand that word he said, but he actually played it, and that was it was nice. And like copy and paste description, see what said. Oh, I really like this game Copod, it said in Google Translate. And yeah, that was that was nice, to hear. And the first time actually, because I can handle like feedback from written word easily. Like say if someone read it or comment on Greenlight and says something negative, I can handle it quite well, because I guess it feels kind of removed in a sense emotionally. But when you have a Let's Play video, I mean, the first time I watched it, it was hard to watch because it felt so real. Like actually, my game was being played by another person. What is this? And yeah, but yeah, I got over that quickly, and now I enjoy it quite a bit when I watch someone else play my game and see that they're enjoying it, because there's nothing more rewarding than that, really, seeing someone enjoy your game.
That's fantastic. Moving on, I kind of got into this with the first question, but just before starting Copod, at what point were you in terms of game dev related experience? Like how many years did you have? How good were you at the art aspect programming?
I mean, before now, I took I don't know what I don't know what the equivalent is in America, but we have A levels here, where when you take a course for a year, I think it's like when you're 18 you take them, and I took art. It was one of the things, along with physics and maths, kind of a odd combination. But yeah, so, and that was like where I developed my art, and also my spare time, that sort of thing. And also just programming by myself. I remember after I did that like the sheep game thing, or the two sheep orbiting them, which was like based off that Ratchet and Clank mini game. I basically decided, well, I should learn to program as well in ActionScript 3, and the base I've been programming since then. I think I guess I was still 16 then. It was I learned to program first, so it was horrible at it. I look back to it, and I think I still have the code somewhere. I refuse to look at it because I know it's just awful. But but it's nice to know that I've come so far, and of course I've still got a lot further to go. But yeah, so I probably on off Phone 16. Then I made a few little Flash games. I never released them to public, just like practice sort of things. So then, while at university, it kind of died down, and then I practiced writing direct text, like just to see what that was about. DirectX 10, just to make a basic renderer, just to develop my skills. Then and then I made and there was like some university projects that I worked on, which were kind of fun. And then started working on Copod, and yeah, pretty much that really.
That's great. Like, it's interesting how much actual time you had to spend before you got to the point of making Copod, right?
And I guess a lot of time has gone. You don't really think about it, but I guess a lot of time has gone. I haven't spending all my time just developing games though. Actually, most of my time is probably just learning other things. But yeah, so this is my first major game, I guess. The first game that I'm putting all my effort into. Like all the other ones before, just like side mini projects I never really finished. So yeah.
So you haven't like released any games before Copod. This is like your first major release.
Two terrible Flash games that actually sold for like when I was working with that friend, we made two games, and but this was like when I was again 16. And
yeah.
So this is my first major release where I've put a lot of effort into it and see where that takes me really, and hopefully just get better and better with each game.
Well, final question here I have for you.
Okay.
How did you come up with the idea for Copod, and which games were your biggest inspirations? I can clearly see a sort of Binding of Isaac inspiration.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think, funny enough, it didn't actually start off as a roguelike. Because I didn't set out with an idea, like a vision. I had, I want to do this game. I was just programming, and kind of, it was an iterative process, really. And so I started off like with these creatures, like Copods here. They were very similar to what they were in the final game, but it was much closer to the spore cell stage then. But it wasn't that fun. Like there wasn't really an objective. It was kind of open-ended. Well, I guess it could have been a good game, but I decided to take it into the more roguelike direction. And just taking inspiration from like the visuals. I took inspiration from Loco Roco and like you said, the Binding of Isaac is a big one because we like that. And also, I got blank there. What else was there? And Spore, and also a bit of Flow. Have you ever played Flow?
I haven't actually played Flow, but could you just explain what you took from it?
Mainly the control scheme and kind of again a bit of the aesthetic as I did from Loco Roco. So in Flow is quite a similar kind of layout really. You have a creature in the center of the screen that you control and you move around, and you have a very basic attack thing. So it's kind of like that. So yeah, I kind of took inspiration from all those sort of things there, and then made Copod out of it really. Like all these and also ideas come up with myself, and yeah.
So it's interesting that you didn't really have like an idea at the start. You just sort of started making it, and then it evolved into what it is.
Yeah.
Now.
I did have like a vision of like what it's going to be, but most of the game is the execution and working out the details. So I had an idea of kind of the theme and how you played it, so to speak. But the actual details in between, I worked out and thought over like the months of development and just trying to figure out how it actually goes and what fits in this game. And when I try something out, is this what I want Copod to be? And if not, then I cut it out, or I just add and develop that feature more. And so it's kind of fun in that aspect, because then you yourself you have a vague idea where the ending is, but you're not entirely sure. So you're constantly exploring the game and seeing where it takes you. And I guess you're more open to feedback then, because when you don't have like a hard set goal, and if you take feedback, and then you're more likely to follow that feedback rather than say, no, this is my absolute vision. But yeah, so I guess it lets you evolve more easily, sort of thing.
That's a really good point. I never thought of it that way, because just from my amateur perspective, I would imagine that most indie game developers will be like, the reason I want to make a game by myself is I want to make like my ideal sort of game. But the way you explain it, it's more like I have an idea of what I want to make, but I want to see how it can
Yeah,
actually go.
yeah.
It's a really
Like,
interesting perspective.
yeah, it's I do have ideas I kind of want to try it before, but even then, I'm not dead set on like that's the final thing. I kind of see how it plays out and that sort of thing. So essentially, that's what it is. Like I have an idea, I try it, see how it plays out, and then if that doesn't play out well, then I evolve it or that sort of thing. Yeah. So it's constant evolution, really.
That's great. And
Okay.
I just want to say Copod is on Steam Greenlight right now. There will be a link in the video description, and make sure to check
Yes,
it
it is.
out.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me on this interview,
Yeah.
Ben.
No problem. It was great. It was quite fun.
And thank you for watching,
Okay.
viewers. I'll see you next time.